Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Building Better Brains. Today I want to talk about something I hear about all the time, parents hear about all the time, and is not talked about enough, strangely. It's the connection between auditory processing disorder and learning and behavior issues. And it's really important to understand what we're going to go through today is the signs of auditory processing, what that looks like and so forth, and how to recognize it so that you understand what's really underneath the behavior and the symptoms and so forth. I see a lot of parents who see these signs, but they don't understand what is actually going on. They don't actually understand, what is the all-encompassing factor that's contributing to these issues. And it's really important to be able to understand what is the all-encompassing factor, which can be auditory processing disorder, in order to actually address it and to understand that your child isn't just being difficult. It's not just, bad behavior. And, to help also eliminate some of your frustration and so forth. So I'm going to ask you, whether you're live or you're watching the replay, what signs do you see? Maybe you are familiar with the term auditory processing disorder, or maybe you're not. So whether it's now or later, I would love to see or hear about what signs you're seeing in your child, to comment below. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to briefly tell you about Becky, because her child was kind of the poster child for this disorder, but at the time she didn't know her child had auditory processing. She came to me really discouraged. She said, everything that could be wrong with my child is wrong with my child. She can't follow a series of directions and steps. If you ask her to do 4 things, she might remember 1 if you're lucky. She can't focus or pay attention. She has difficulty remembering, filtering out distractions, whether it's at school or at home. If you say something to her, it's like she's not really even listening to you. It's like she's completely ignoring you. And more than that, in terms of behavior, Becky had issues with reading and couldn't blend sounds, couldn't, put sounds together and detect phonics and so forth, which is a big factor with dyslexia. And she also had some mild speech issues. So you can see her mom really felt like she was given like a big basket of lemons, in terms of what was going on with her daughter. And when she understood that a lot of these could tie into auditory processing, all of a sudden it felt like not everything was wrong with her child. It felt like one thing was wrong. And that takes the mystery or the obscurity out of what's going on with our children. Because when we feel like there's all these problems going on, we have to address this and we have to address that, and we have to get a tutor for this and this for that, it can just leave you totally short-circuited and overwhelmed. So let me know if you can relate, or if you've experienced something similar to Becky and her concerns with her child and so forth. Don't be shy to ask questions, whether it's live or in the replay, and I'll be happy to answer them. So maybe your child has a diagnosis of auditory processing or something related to auditory processing, like a learning disability, ADHD, or even autism spectrum. It does affect about 50% of children with ADHD, and statistically around a little less with learning disabilities and so forth. So it's a huge factor that people hear, particularly when they do get psycho-ed evaluations. And what's really going on when a child has auditory processing disorder is that there is a disconnect between what the ear hears and the brain actually processes. So it's not something that can be diagnosed on a standard hearing test, because it's not about if the ear can hear, it's more about what the brain is processing. And so it has to do with a breakdown in how the brain is receiving the information, processing the information, interpreting the information, retaining the information, and even communicating that information. So there's a lot of areas of where breakdown can happen. And so you can see why there's going to be potentially a lot of issues with focus, attention, learning, behavior, and so forth. So my next question for you is, do you understand the difference between hearing and listening? Do you understand the difference between hearing and listening? So hearing is passive. So I can be working on something, listening to some, like, I don't know, chill music in the background, maybe some folk music, and I'm not really listening to all the words and everything going on, but I'm aware, I'm hearing it. Listening is very active. It requires engagement. And if a child is able to listen to the info as opposed to just hear it, it's very likely that they are actually going to learn because that information is going through the auditory system properly. Okay. However, with auditory processing disorder, they are hearing the info, but they're not processing it properly. The brain is just not breaking it down properly. And, this is where I see like discipline issues where the parent will say, he just completely ignores me, or I swear he's just so defiant. You tell him to do, 3 things and he doesn't even do one, or he does one and he doesn't do it properly the way you told him to. And it can really seem like they're being defiant. And of course, when kids are getting nagged because they're not doing things properly, then they are maybe going to get their back up, and it's going to lead to a whole snowball of effects and so forth. When really the underlying factor can very well be auditory processing issues. And so basically it's when a child's ability to listen as opposed to hear is compromised. And so it will affect their ability to learn, their ability to memorize, to filter out distractions and focus and all of that stuff. And so auditory processing is crucial for higher order brain skills, for those higher levels that we so need to be able to function. And what should happen is that sound should travel through the ear, go into the body via the nervous system. So think like the brain, spinal cord, and so forth. And all of this, occurs through something called the vagus nerve, which is a nerve that runs from the brainstem to the ears, connects to other organs in the body, and even connects to our cortex, again, our higher brain levels. So if you think of the ear in terms of learning as the portal to the brain, the portal even to learning, it is like a processing plant, or the auditory cortex is. So what happens is sound waves get converted into electrical waves, and this provides stimulation to the brain, or the higher brain, known as the cortex. So I wanted to keep this video short because I know it's a lot of information, but it's really important. I'm going to be doing I'm doing a whole series on auditory processing. Tomorrow I'm going to be talking about the connection between executive functioning and auditory processing breakdown, and take some of the mystery or obscurity out of that. But please let me know, do you see signs of auditory processing issues with your child? What do they look like? Do they have a diagnosis? And even what are some strategies? Like, comment below. I know there's other moms that are going to watch this. Some of them have just received a diagnosis or are just starting to pick up on the fact that there's some issues. Mention strategies that you have found helpful. I'm going to be talking about that in future videos that are going to, in terms of strategies, I'm going to be talking about strategies that reach way beyond management. I'm really focused on addressing and correcting the root cause and not just managing a situation. So definitely stay tuned for that on Thursday. So if you like this video, please share, and I will post in the comments below my free starter kit with exercises and nutrition tips to improve learning and behavior. You can grab that for free. Thanks for watching.